รายการต่อไปนี้เป็นรายการทั่วไปสามารถรับชมได้ทุกวัย
สนับสนุนโดย AIS ใช้ชีวิตได้มากกว่า
คณะกรรมการกาชาดระหว่างประเทศหรือ ICRC ก่อตั้งในปีพุทธศักราช 2406 เป็นต้นกำเนิดของกลุ่มองค์กรกาชาดและเสี้ยววงเดือนแดงระหว่างประเทศตลอดระยะเวลาเกือบ 150 ปี ICRC ปฏิบัติภารกิจด้านมนุษยธรรมเพื่อปกป้องคุ้มครองชีวิตและศักดิ์ศรีของผู้ที่ได้รับผลกระทบจากภัยการสู้รบสงครามและสถานการณ์ความรุนแรงที่เกี่ยวข้องโดยไม่เลือกปฏิบัติเป็นกลางและเป็นอิสระในการร่วมมือระหว่างกลุ่มองค์กรกาชาดและเสี้ยววงเดือนแดงระหว่างประเทศ ICRC ปฏิบัติงานบรรเทาทุกข์ระดับระหว่างประเทศในภาวะความขัดแย้งพยายามป้องกันความเสียหายอันเกิดจากการสู้รบโดยการส่งเสริมและปรับปรุงประสิทธิภาพของกฎหมายมนุษยธรรมและหลักการด้านมนุษยธรรมระหว่างประเทศปัจจุบัน ICRC มีเจ้าหน้าที่ปฏิบัติงานในพื้นที่ทั่วโลกกว่า 12,000 คนในสำนักงาน 60 แห่งใน 80 ประเทศโดยมีเงินสนับสนุนกิจกรรมจากการบริจาคของประเทศที่เป็นภาคีและสภากาชาดหรือสภาเสี้ยววงเดือนแดงของแต่ละประเทศ
ไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยยุนคืนนี้เป็นเรื่องที่ถึงแม้ว่าเราจะไม่ค่อยได้ยินบ่อยนักแต่ว่ามีบทบาทสำคัญเมื่อความขัดแย้งในระดับโลกมาถึงระดับประเทศเกิดขึ้นกว้างขวางรุนแรงและปรับรูปแบบมาตลอดองค์กรที่มีหน้าที่เข้าไปช่วยเหลือทางด้านมนุษยธรรมโดยเฉพาะระดับโลกกาชาดสากล ICRC International Committee for the Red Cross เราได้ยินบ่อยๆสภากาชาดสากลแต่เราไม่เคยรู้ว่าจริงๆบทบาทของกาชาดสากลนี้คืออะไรอย่างไรเขารบกันอยู่เขาฆ่าฟันกันอยู่ ICRC จะเข้าไปช่วยเหลือเหยื่อสงครามและต้องเป็นธรรมกับทุกฝ่ายที่เกี่ยวข้องความเสี่ยงที่เกิดขึ้นการที่ต้องวางแผนให้ปลอดภัยด้วยและสามารถช่วยเหลือคนอื่นที่เป็นเหยื่อของความขัดแย้งด้วยเป็นเรื่องท้าทายอย่างยิ่งครับวันนี้ท่านประธานใหญ่ของกาชาดสากลมิสเตอร์ปีเตอร์มอร์โรมานั่งคุยกับผมและผมมีคำถามหลายข้อเพราะว่าเรื่องของความขัดแย้งความรุนแรงที่เกิดขึ้นระดับโลกนั้นกำลังกระจายตัวมารอบประเทศไทยและความจริงในประเทศไทยเราด้วยครับ Mr. Mora, what are you doing in Thailand?
Well, I'm visiting in Thailand because we have a regional delegation here of ICRC, and therefore I had the opportunity also to address a Thai public in a speech on the challenges of humanitarian action today. So it's a short visit, but it's an important visit to an important regional delegation and an activity not only in Thailand but in a whole region.
Your presence doesn't indicate that there's a growing concern of conflict in this region, right?
Well, our presence is always ambivalent because when ICRC is present somewhere, there can be two reasons. It can be because our universal responsibility for international humanitarian law, and every country in the world has signed up to the Geneva Conventions, and we are engaging with all governments of the world in order to know and to respect these conventions, and that the government institutions, the police forces, the armies respect this law. So it can be a very normal feature if ICRC is present in a country. And then you are right, we have a special mandate with regard to armed conflicts and other situations of violence. And you find ICRC in many places of the world where there are conflicts and violence going on. So there are both reasons for an ICRC president to visit a region and a country.
But this time you come to give a talk on the new type of violence, not because you are trying to engage parties in the conflict in Thailand or in the region?
Not for this specific reason. We have been celebrating 40 years of cooperation here in Bangkok with the Thai Red Cross. Our work started with the Indo-China War and the refugee crisis, the boat people, the refugee crisis.
Indo-China War.
And so this has been an occasion for me to somehow signal the importance and the continued importance of our partnership with the Chinese, with the region, with the Thai Red Cross, with the activities in the region, which is of critical importance.
In Thailand, what has ICRC's role been?
ICRC has been active in visiting detainees, and as you know, when we visit detention facilities in a country, we are normally engaged in a confidential dialogue with the authorities in order to improve the situations
prison
conditions.
So you keep your talks secret?
We
try not to embarrass the local government?
We keep a space of confidential exchange where ICRC makes recommendations to the respective authorities, also works in order to help improve the situation in detention facilities. And we, of course, engage with the armed forces, with the police forces in the sense that I mentioned beforehand, in letting the international humanitarian law known, and we have certain activities in the South provinces.
But of course, the authorities may not be too happy with ICRC's role in certain circumstances, where, for example, the prison conditions. Security officials will certainly think that those in prison should be treated the way that they think is proper. At the same time, ICRC may say, this does not go according to the convention, international convention. Well, so you could get into arguments?
I think ICRC is a good sparring partner of a government which is interested to positively improve the situations in detention facilities.
But not all governments are interested in improving prison conditions, are
they? Many countries are. Many countries are and are interested about international standards, about experiences we make all over the world. We visit detention facilities, prisons in more than 90 countries of the world. We have visited more than 800,000 detainees worldwide. And this is a body of experiences which is interesting for a country, because we have competitors and comparisons, we can give good advice. And because these conversations are held in private and in confidential atmosphere, this gives a space of confidence in which improvements can be sought without being put on the spot in the public environment. So
that's why you don't publicize your
normally visit. We do have very positive interactions with governments, because most of the time when, and in particular in a case like Thailand today, we are here because the government allows us to be here. Because according to the Geneva Convention, only in international armed conflict, ICRC has a conventional right to visit prisoners.
So you have to get permission from the government.
We have to have permissions from the government, and so it's the fact that we are here signals that we have this kind of positive, welcoming attitude.
Do you get rejection from government saying, no, we don't want you here?
It doesn't mean, well, we get rejections in some places of the world. It happens. We normally do not give up. We try again. And if we think it is important that we are here.
But I notice that you do not publicize this kind of arrangements or lack of cooperation from local governments.
We do publicize very rarely. We do publicize when, after a long period of efforts and engagements, we see that either nothing is happening to the positive. We may decide to just stop a visiting operation.
When you stop,
or
do you tell the world that you stop?
We normally tell the world that we stop.
That's one way to pressure government.
Yeah. But for the other things, again, except for international armed conflict where we have a right based on the Geneva Conventions to have access to prisoners of war. When we are not in that framework, but we are just offering services because of our decade and century-old experience, we are dependent on having an agreement with the government. We work together with the government in good faith, and we find good response.
So you call this humanitarian diplomacy, which is very delicate, very difficult.
We call that, it's at least one part of humanitarian diplomacy. It has different facets, but indeed, humanitarian diplomacy summarizes all our activities which make an effort to be operational, to be active in a context in a country. When we have to access parties to conflict, or when we have to have a license to operate from a government, and we try to convince and to engage with this government, we call that humanitarian diplomacy.
Since you took over this post, the budget of ICRC has gone up. You're now operating in about 80 countries in the world. More money, more budget, more activities. Does that indicate that things are getting worse in the world in terms of conflict? If the world is peaceful, ICRC should be without a job, right?
Yes.
But the world is not improving in terms of the degree of violence. Therefore, ICRC is more active. More money is needed.
I think, and I fear you are right, the founding fathers of ICRC thought that the foundation of ICRC was just a temporary foundation pending the outbreak of peace in the world.
That was 150 years ago?
That was more than 150 years ago.
They were hoping for an outbreak of peace, not war.
Yes. And so this hope did not materialize over 150 years. ICRC has had different sizes and exposures, but you are right in mentioning that for the last 3 years, we have known an enormous increase, and it signals that in some parts of the world, things are not going well, and that violence and conflict are spreading. And this is particularly true with regard to the Middle East and Africa at large. And when I say the Middle East at large, it's an Islamic country. I give you 3 figures. 70% of all ICRC operations worldwide happen in Muslim countries. 30% of everything we do happens in the 6 countries: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Jordan, Israel, Palestine, and Yemen. And 44% of what ICRC does is happening on the African continent. So you see, whether you take a geographic or a cultural determinant, you end up in saying that we have a huge area of instability, which goes from Afghanistan to West Africa, and from the Middle East to the Horn of Africa, to the African continent. And this is the bulk of our activities, and it's also those contexts which have grown considerably over the last couple of years.
Because Myanmar say we don't have Rohingyas; they are stateless people. Downstream, middle stream are now discussing how to handle this situation. What is ICRC's position on that?
Well, first,
สนับสนุนโดย AIS ใช้ชีวิตได้มากกว่า
We now have the problem of the Rohingyas from Myanmar and Bangladesh, and ASEAN countries and other countries in the region have had meetings. How does ICRC look at this issue? Because Myanmar say, we don't have Rohingyas. They are stateless people. They are from Bangladesh. Bangladesh said, no, we don't accept them. So they get out from the two countries in boats. And then all these countries downstream, middle stream, are now discussing how to handle this situation. What is ICRC's position on that?
Well, first and foremost, as ICRC and also as a Red Cross and Red Crescent movement, we have always been very reluctant to engage in a discussion on status. Our mandate is humanitarian, and therefore we try to assist and protect people who suffer from the impact of violence.
Without regard
for
religion.
Race and religious or status, we try to assist and protect people who suffer from violence, and everybody knows that in Rakhine State we have seen intercommunal violence which has led to displacements. Our first priority as ICRC, whether we look at Rakhine State, at Syria, or at Lake Chad, to just mention 3 examples, is to assist and protect the people as long as we can, as good as we can, where the people are first. So we entertain a major assistance program in Rakhine State. We have a big delegation in Sitwe, and we try to assist and protect people as they are locally displaced through the violence and through the intercommunal violence. We do the same in Syria, we do the same in the middle of Africa, in Lake Chad, North Nigeria. So our first effort is always to support life and livelihoods before people start to migrate.
Before that?
Before
do you encourage them to migrate or not?
Well,
do you encourage them to stay home, or
we do not infringe with people's decisions whether they stay or they migrate. We are neutral about their decision. We try to assist and protect them where they are. But our first effort is always to allow them lives and livelihoods, and support their lives and livelihoods where they are, and that's the reason why we have such a big program in Myanmar, in Rakhine province, because we have such a big programs with the internally displaced in Syria.
What do you give them?
We provide water, sanitation, shelter, medical facilities, if necessary food. We provide family reunification services. We look for the missing. We connect people to each other. So we have minimal humanitarian services for those people so that at least they can survive where they are. Once they migrate, we try to assist and protect them along the migration routes in which they find themselves. We look at their vulnerabilities, and we see whether in a humanitarian context we can engage either with national societies or as ICRC or together as a Red Cross and Red Crescent movement to assist and protect those who have started to migrate, who often are exploited by traffickers, who suffer from violence along those trafficking routes. I give you an example from another continent. We have built migration protection centers along the whole route of migration in the Americas, from Central America to North America, together with the Red Cross societies of Mexico and Central America and the United States.
These are refugee camps?
It's not refugee camps. It's places where migrants can spend the night, can get some health facilities, can be protected and not be exploited by traffickers. We look for reception structures for those who are forcefully returned because they have been declared illegal in the United States, for instance. So we support their return, and we see that when they return, they are not exploited by drug traffickers or other criminals. So we build humanitarian reception and assistance structure. This doesn't help and doesn't sort of make the problem disappear of migration, but it mitigates the negative impact that migration may have once people are forced or people have decided to migrate.
But you don't engage the governments in discussions on how to treat these people so that they would not have to leave? No.
Well, we do, of course, through our humanitarian activity, as I mentioned beforehand, we engage governments to respect international humanitarian law. And if humanitarian law is respected, then normally people do not see a reason to migrate in big numbers, because then they can find their livelihoods. But of course, migration as such is also a very political issue.
Yes.
And it touches a lot of political issues. And we are very cautious not to enter as humanitarian actors into the broader political discussion on status, on entitlements, on nationalities.
It's very difficult. Sometimes the line...
It's a fine line.
Very fine line, and without any political action, the humanitarian situation will get worse, right?
Well, this is what the essence of humanitarianism is. We know as humanitarian actors that we cannot solve the origin of the problems.
Yes.
Because the origins of the problems are always political. And we need to have political actors address political problems. If humanitarian starts to mingle with political problems, we lose our neutrality, we lose our impartiality, we lose our neutrality and our independence. And these are critical for us in order to create a minimal space in which a minimal value of humanity can be preserved. And then we have to be confident that political actors take their responsibilities seriously, and they address at a political level those issues which cannot be addressed by only mitigating measures of humanitarian actors.
Do you distinguish between economic migrants and political refugees? Because some people leave not because of politics, but because they want to seek better jobs.
Yeah, here again, we do not make a distinction. We look. The only criteria which is relevant for a humanitarian is the seriousness of humanitarian need once a person has started to migrate. So when we define assistance programs, when we define priorities, we look who is the most seriously endangered person or group of persons. It's normally women, it's normally children, it's normally elderly, it's normally detained people in migration. These are the most vulnerable. We don't make the distinction on whether their reason for starting to migrate is political, ethnical, religious, economic, or whatever. We think that there are other actors who have to deal with those categories. We deal with humanitarianism.
ประธานกาชาดสากลสนทนากับผมมีประเด็นที่น่าสนใจอย่างยิ่งครับเพราะว่าทั้งโลกเนี่ยอยู่ในภาวะของความขัดแย้งความรุนแรงสงครามย่อยมีความขัดแย้งทั้งในประเทศและระดับสากลบทบาทของกาชาดสากลหรือ ICRC ซึ่งแน่นอนครับไม่มีอำนาจจะไปสั่งใครได้แต่ว่ามีกฎหมายระหว่างประเทศที่เรียกว่าเป็น International Humanitarian Law หรือกฎหมายว่าด้วยมนุษยธรรมของโลกที่ประเทศต่างๆลงนามเป็นผู้ ที่ถือว่าต้องปฏิบัติตามแต่ทุกครั้งที่เกิดความขัดแย้ง ICRC เข้าไปได้มากน้อยแค่ไหนฝ่ายที่เป็นคู่กรณีจะยอมรับกติกาว่าจะต้องปฏิบัติต่อเหยื่อของความขัดแย้งนั้นอย่างมีความเป็นมนุษยธรรมได้หรือไม่เป็นเรื่องที่วิเคราะห์สลับซับซ้อนละเอียดอ่อนอย่างยิ่งอย่างที่ท่านได้พูดถึงกรณีโรฮิงญาแต่ว่ายังมีประเด็นที่สำคัญว่าแล้วความขัดแย้งระดับสากลอื่นๆกรณีที่มีกลุ่มคนที่ใช้อาวุธและเชื่อในความรุนแรงอย่างเดียวอย่างกรณีไอซิสล่ะ ICRC จะเข้าไปพูดจากับเขาว่าให้ปฏิบัติต่อเหยื่ออย่างมีมนุษยธรรมนั้นได้อย่างไรเป็นคำถามที่น่าสนใจมากครับวันนี้เวลาไม่พอครับสัปดาห์หน้าไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยหยุ่นจะกลับมาพูดคุยกับปีเตอร์มอร์โรประธานกาชาดสากลในบทบาทที่ทั้งโลกดูเหมือนจะมีความขัดแย้งสูงขึ้นยิ่งจำเป็นต้องมีคนกลางที่พูดถึงเรื่องการปฏิบัติต่อเหยื่อของความขัดแย้งอย่างมีมนุษยธรรมมาตรฐานสากลคืออะไรสัปดาห์หน้าไทม์ไลน์จะกลับมาวิเคราะห์สนทนาต่อมากมายหลายประเด็นว่าแล้วจุดไหนในโลกที่อันตรายที่สุดและ ICRC ที่มีกิจกรรมปฏิบัติการถึง80ประเทศนั้นเนี่ยแต่ละวันแต่ละนาทีแต่ละชั่วโมงในฐานะเป็นประธานเขาจะต้องมีความพร้อมจะต้องติดตามข่าวสารอย่างไรบ้างสัปดาห์หน้าครับวันนี้เวลาไทม์ไลน์สุทธิชัยหยุ่นหมดแล้วครับอย่าลืมนะครับเสาร์อาทิตย์4 ทุ่มครึ่งกลับมาพบกับรายการวิเคราะห์สนทนาเบื้องหลังข่าวคราวที่คนไทยควรจะรู้ในระดับสากลครับวันนี้ลาไปก่อนครับสวัสดีครับ